A speech, a vice presidential candidacy, and an entire campaign aimed squarely at everyday Americans. I am Dan O'Donnell. We are live from the UWM Panther Arena. It's the Media Center on this, the final day of the Republican National Convention. Former President Donald Trump will speak, addressing the nation for the very first time since he was nearly assassinated. A sniper's bullet came within just a few millimeters of ending his life and permanently altering the face of this country, but the face of former President Trump was, and always will be strong, in contrast with President Biden, who late yesterday afternoon we learned will be sidelined with COVID-19. This news coming just a couple of hours, actually, after President Biden said the only thing that could get him out of this presidential re-election bid is a doctor's orders. Could this be the first step? Because a couple of days ago, a meeting with Democrat leaders from across the country on a Zoom call revealed to Biden, or at least it should have, that he no longer has the backing of his party. When even Chuck Schumer is telling him it's time to go, it's time to go. Biden, though, is and was resolute that he's not leaving. The details of that call were leaked. And now Democrats are saying his performance on Saturday, just a couple of hours after the attempted assassination of Trump, was even worse than the debate. As you can imagine, it is an absolutely jam-packed show today, but we still have time for your calls, your texts. The AdventNews.com talk and text line is 414-799-1130. You can reach us toll-free, 1-800-838-9476. Email me, DOD@iHeartMedia.com, at Dan O'Donnell Show on X, Facebook.com/Dan O'Donnell Show, where you can watch this show streaming live on X, on Facebook, or our YouTube channel. Just search for Dan O'Donnell or Dan O'Donnell Show. I promise you'll find me and not that Irish singer with the same name. We also have the Sizzlin' Summer Cash Contest. Word this hour is Bills, BILLS. Win $1,000 instantly just by going to our website, entering the keyword Bills, and waiting for a phone call from us. If you get one, that means you have just won $1,000 instantly. To answer all of your questions, yes, that was me on the floor of the convention last night. During Vice Presidential nominee Vance's speech, I was right next to Scott Walker. I spent a good portion of the latter part of the speeches talking with both him and former Governor Tommy Thompson. Had an absolutely fantastic time with the Republican delegation, who is as welcoming and hospitable as you could be. I then pushed forward. So for Vance's speech, I actually had a view even better than a front row seat. There was the front row. The Wisconsin delegation is to the right of the stage as you face it. I'm sure you've seen them on TV. And I actually pushed forward from the front row of the Wisconsin delegation to where the media's cameras were. And the only person in front of me was a Secret Service agent. So I had arguably the best view in the House. But my view was decidedly different from everybody at home. And this is something that happens. I noticed this when I was attending last year the first Republican presidential debate held right here at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee. I was in the building but had a totally different view than all of you watching at home. It's just a different experience, and to be sure, your view is actually way more important than mine, because that's the view of millions and millions and millions of voters, and not just the 15, 16,000 people who are inside the Fiserv Forum. But from my view, Vance's speech was a grand slam in every way, particularly the way that it captured the essence of this convention and, by extension, the Trump-Vance campaign. Republicans understand the pain that Democrat policies have caused, and it's okay to vote Republican, even if you aren't one. Now, you also saw Vance's youthful energy that was tempered by a warm, calm demeanor that serves as a perfect complement to Trump's bombast. Now, make no mistake, last night's speech was a speech, and Vance is a VP aimed squarely at the heart of the traditional Democrat voter base, a base that now feels their party has betrayed and impoverished them. And Vance was one of them. He grew up a victim of poverty and dysfunction and addiction in backwater coal country. But his American dream, he said, can be all of America's if they just reject the lies about Donald Trump and the Republican Party and vote for the ideas and the principles they know in their heart to be the right ones. Now, that was Vance's speech, but more importantly, this is and has been Vance's life. And because of that, both it and he were perfect for this convention and this presidential ticket. Vance began, as one might expect, by discussing the attempted assassination.
There would have been rage in the streets.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's funny you say that, okay? But he's got a tremendous amount of power, and I guess according to most men,
It wasn't just a show of strength from Trump, according to Vance. It was also a show of resolve. And that was the thing. Not necessarily strength. Not, Julius Caesar popping up after Brutus tried to lead the coup against him and, fighting them off and then continue to rule as the dictator of Rome. This was a conciliatory moment. When Trump said fight, he didn't mean literally fight back against the left. He meant, I am going to continue to fight for you. I want you to continue to fight for this country. What we saw on Saturday was about as fundamentally un-American as it gets. In November of 1963, this country was very nearly brought to its knees by the assassination of John F. Kennedy Jr. It was a dark day. It was very nearly brought to its knees again in 1981 with the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan that left him in the hospital. I mean, these were moments that could shake the very foundations of the American Republic. But America fought back. And what he was saying is fight back again. As President Biden put it, fight back at the battle box. Vance had an eloquent moment as well where he officially accepted the vice presidential nomination.
and these morons who vote in our country, they're going to believe that. That's why he accept this. He talks about 16 weeks. That's about right. So the idea that Donald Trump's got it wrong, when you've got a party that is okay with killing...
Again, what was the message? Unity for all Americans, not just Republicans. It's okay to vote Republican. By right, Vance was saying, I should have been a Democrat. Because where I grew up, everybody voted Democrat. Because where I grew up, the dysfunction, the addiction, the joblessness, the homelessness, all of it was at some level caused by Democrat policies. Leniency on crime, the flooding of America's streets with fentanyl from China, the competition for American jobs opened up to foreign workers in this country legally, illegally, doesn't matter. We have created massive competition for the American worker, and make no mistake, it is the American working class that now constitutes the base of the Republican Party. In that sense, this was a speech that was all about going on offense. This wasn't about defending Donald Trump from media lies or defending Republicans from what it is the left says about us. This was a speech that was designed to take Democrat voters who are sick and tired of a left-wing woke agenda that has left them behind. And whenever they complain, whenever they say, hey, this isn't an America first agenda, it's essentially an America last agenda. We've been left behind by your economic policies, by your immigration policies. Our kids are going to war because of your foreign policy. We're dumping billions and billions and billions of dollars into Ukraine that could be used to help people who are struggling in backwater coal country in Kentucky or Ohio or Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. It makes sense then that Vance, by all accounts, is basically going to be campaigning in the Rust Belt states almost exclusively. He is going to be delivering the message to those traditional blue dog voters in Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, in Cuyahoga County in Ohio, Milwaukee County here in Wisconsin, areas that have been Democrat strongholds, but that are ripe for turning those states red, just like Ohio was turned red when people finally saw that the Democratic Party wasn't working for them. The goal here is to make Michigan Ohio, to make Wisconsin Ohio, to make Pennsylvania Ohio. Remember when Hillary Clinton constantly talked about the blue wall, the blue wall of the upper Midwest that was the Democrat stronghold? The Vance selection and the Vance speech last night, basically every speech at this convention, if you really think about it, was aimed at turning that into a red wall. It was aimed at making those states so reliably Republican that Democrats are on the defense because their voters in those states, in the counties, in the regions that are left behind by Democrat politics and Democrat policies, and all the while calling those rural, loyal blue dog voters racists because they don't go along with the woke agenda, or homophobes and transphobes because they don't want men competing in women's sports. They don't want boys going into their daughters' locker rooms and bathrooms. These are the people who have always been told, well, you're a union guy. You need to vote how the union tells you. Who was one of the very first speakers at this convention? The head of the Teamsters. A lot of people were ticked off about that because, of course, he said Teamster things, because he said we don't agree on a lot of issues. He talks about right to work going away and all of this, and the future belongs to the American worker, and the unions own this country and all this. It's what you would expect from the president of the Teamsters. But this was an open signal to Teamsters and other union employees. And in fact, I actually have a little bit of inside information about Vance's speech. The official transcript, which I was actually kind of watching on his teleprompter at the back of the floor, originally said he made reference to workers. And the actual line, I don't know why he skipped it. I think it was just for time or something like that, or he thought in his mind at that moment that what he said had a better flow. But when he referenced American workers, the line was union and non-union alike. That is an open call for union workers who have been Democrats for years because their dads and granddads were Democrats. And they said Democrats are the party that looks out for the little guy. That's no longer the case. The fundamental realignment in American politics was alive and well and reflected in that speech. the country doesn't belong to the unions. The country does belong to the everyday Americans who have been highlighted throughout this convention, and the everyday Americans who I believe see their own life story reflected in Vance's and see their own American dream reflected in his. You are listening to the Dan O'Donnell Show live from the Republican National Convention. Conservative thought, not just talk, and more of it is next. Stay tuned. We are back here on the Dan O'Donnell Show live from the Republican National Convention, the final day. It is all about former President Trump. If you are watching the show live via the Dan Cam, you can see that my outfit is, yes, an homage to the former president. I will absolutely guarantee he is wearing the red, white, and blue combo that he's best known for. And I figured, you know what, this is his day. Let's do it. I am Dan O'Donnell, and I'm so pleased to be joined by a guy who I've been a fan of for years, actually. He is a fellow millennial conservative radio host. There aren't all that many of us.
We're a dying breed.
Ben Ferguson, national host. You can hear him on the weekend right here on WISN.
Can I just give a mad shout out to you? Like, I sit down and the amount of technology that you have is beyond overwhelming to me. I'm like, this is like you're streaming like this for your audience. This guy guy is committed to you guys, so embrace him. It is a whole nother level. Well done.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Well
so
done.
much. I didn't even get through the intro, and it's already the compliments are coming. I appreciate it. He also hosts The Verdict with Ted Cruz podcast.
Yeah.
It's one of the absolute best political podcasts
Thank you.
that there is. You guys talking about the law, talking about politics, talking about life, really. It's an entertaining thing. You can download it and subscribe on your iHeartRadio app or
wherever
you listen to your
top
podcast.
Exactly. See, yeah, not your first rodeo.
Ben's also a company guy, so
right.
he knows you got to give the.
We're in the ever small family. Right?
Yes,
It
we are.
gets smaller and smaller.
Yes, we are, and that's
It's like
actually
a dinosaur when it's like, you do radio? Yes, I'm one of them.
Yes,
Yes,
it's like,
we do exist.
Do you have a podcast?
Yes.
What's your podcast?
Yeah.
Well, my podcast airs 9 a.m. They're like, you can only listen to it. Yes, but the future is podcast. The future is the working man and working woman in the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I thought it wasn't just Vance's speech. It was the entire convention has been focused around this idea that if
Yes.
you are a hardworking person, black, brown, Latino, man, woman, gay, straight,
Whatever it is.
you have a home here.
Yeah. Look, this is and I say this with the context of like, we're Republicans, we can screw up anything. The amount of unity that we have right now in this party is something I've never seen before. The amount of synergy and excitement around Donald Trump, I've never witnessed this before. Because in 2016 it was contentious, as you know and remember. I have never seen a convention this excited about a candidate. I've also never seen people look at Donald Trump again. In politics, you usually don't get that. Like,
right.
Like, hey, you know, Trump's so polarizing. We know that people that hate him, right? And people that were annoyed by him. If they didn't like his tweets, and I knew a lot of people that were conservatives that didn't vote in the last election. They didn't vote against him. They didn't go for Biden, but they didn't show up. And what he has an opportunity to do tonight is historic, because I think there are millions of Americans that are going to watch him that are giving him a second chance. And when I say second chance, I mean it. They voted for him in 2016. They didn't vote for him in 2020. And I also think there's the undecided voter, that swing voter, that is going to watch him tonight differently, not with disdain, but with intrigue of like, hey, he almost died on Saturday. I want to listen to what he has to say tonight. And I think this is a moment for Donald Trump where he can unite the country and bring in people that maybe were annoyed by his tweets in 2020 or 2019 or 2018, right? That were turned off by him. Like, oh, I can't stand Donald Trump. He's everywhere all the time, and I'm annoyed by him. And I think he has an opportunity to do that. I also think his age is actually an advantage tonight. He can be a grandfather for the country.
Yep.
He can be an elder statesman for the country. And look, Donald Trump having an opportunity to rebrand himself tonight is significant. I also think he is different than he was on Friday of last week.
Yeah.
Senator Cruz yesterday met with him, and several others that I've been around have met with him here. And he is a different man. They all have said it. He knows he's lucky to be alive. And he's had that realization that he's lucky to be alive. I also think, and he said this several times to different people, God saved my life, like God saved me. And I think if you've ever been through a moment like that where you understand that you really shouldn't be here, I think you have a different purpose. And I think you've seen that in his demeanor at the convention, even when he walks in, when he's sitting there listening to speeches. And I think this is going to be a very, very big moment for him. I think it's the most important speech of his political career. I think it's more important than when he came down the escalator.
Yes.
And he has an opportunity tonight to solidify and to say, I'm going to lead this country, and I'm going to do it from a place of compassion and love, because I love this country.
And that is what I think you saw reflected, even though he hasn't said a word yet, in his demeanor at this
100%.
convention. And I don't know if you could see, I was on the convention floor with the Wisconsin delegation, sort of snuck back as the Gold Star families were speaking.
Yeah.
And I was watching former President Trump, and this is not a guy who shows any emotion except, joviality, anger,
100%.
Humor. And he had in his eyes every emotion of not just sadness, but self-reflection and
Yep.
all of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you could see he had tears in his eyes, and you could see he was genuinely moved. And, my wife actually made this observation when he was first introduced on Monday night, when you saw him backstage and the crowd just went crazy. He had that same look with you could tell there were tears in his eyes. You could
Yes.
tell this guy is a strong, old school dude. He's not going to let anybody see him cry. But the fact that he was close, and for the very first time in the 10 years he's been in the political arena, very possibly in the 40 years that he's been in the public eye, you saw that emotion, you saw that kind of window into his soul. I think that was about as powerful as anything gets. And you're right. Tonight he has the chance to verbalize, I think, what the entire country's feeling.
Look, every person in politics has a thing, right? Donald Trump's a guy that goes out there and wants to punch out. He wants to KO his opponent. I don't see that in him tonight, and that's the first time, and that's a good thing, because not every speech needs to be a KO, and I'm one of those. Okay, when I go, I did 7 years in hell at CNN as a commentator, and it was not
Battle.
Yeah, it was. But you walk in there, and it's like you're all trying to destroy me, and I'm coming after you and fighting. It wasn't a conversation. It was a survival for 7 years. And I was glad to do it. It taught me a lot. And I also defended the president vigorously on there, and he needed someone on CNN to defend him, and I did that job. But I was also very tired and fatiguing at the end of the 7 years, to the point where I said, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I've done my tour in hell. I'm done. I want to leave. And I think Donald Trump is probably in that same point. Like, he's done his tour in hell. And now it's like, this is about legacy. This is about the good of the country. This is a moment that is going to define his entire life, the assassination attempt. And he knows he's on borrowed time from God now. And I think you come in with a different purpose. Look, I've had two moments in my life where I should have died. We were hit by a drunk driver when I was a young kid, and he died, and we lived. He died at the scene.
Jeez.
And when you're a kid and you're 5 and you step over a dead body to try to get your mom out of the car because her door's crumpled and can't get out, it is a moment where I understood in a weird way that, okay, I want to do something in my life important.
Yeah.
I want to, and I mean, even at a young age. And then I was a target of a gang initiation in my hometown of Memphis, and had to shoot to save my life against 2 shooters against me.
When was this?
This was, now it's been 10 years. And ended up, they went to jail, and then the gang threatened to kill me in the courthouse in the elevator when I was at a parole violation hearing for one of the 2 men. And those are moments that when you get shot at from 5 feet away and bullets go in between you and your best friend and you don't get hit, you know God protected you. And when the windows were shot out on both sides of you against the car where they were shooting at us, when they slammed us up against the car and robbed us and then went to shoot us, I knew God saved my life, and I think my purpose in life changed. I wanted to spend quality time with my kids when I had them, and I wanted to be a dad that was always there. And I was willing to do my job well, but not be career first. That was the first time in my life I was not career first. I wanted to do things in radio and TV, but being a father is my number one priority, full stop. And I think what Donald Trump is probably going through now, and this is just from being in a shooting and shooting back and knowing that you could die, is that he's probably thinking, my priority now is to do everything I can to help this country and to save this country, and it's not about him anymore. And I think that's what you're seeing. I can only relate to that because I've been in that shooting, in that moment. And I think he is going to be a much better president because of it. And I think that God uses all evil things for good. And Donald Trump is just a little different now. Everyone I've talked to said this. And that's why I think tonight is going to be a night where he could literally, I think, close out this election and be the president of the United States of America again. And I think he's going to be a different president. I don't think he's going to do the petty stuff like he used to.
Yeah.
Because you can just tell now it's like it's a bigger picture.
Right.
It's
His
not
whole
about me
worldview
just
has
beating
changed.
you up.
Yeah.
It's not about yelling at the media and the risers on the back, right? And mocking them.
Yeah.
And that firebrand attack. I think it's like I'm past that now.
Right.
I have things that this country needs, and I'm going to do what's best for the country, and that's going to be his legacy. I hope he understands that. I think he does.
He is Ben Ferguson. You can hear him on the Ben Ferguson Show.
Yeah.
It airs
Sunday night, 7 to 10 East, 6 to 9 Central.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I always hear you, but it's Sunday night, so
Yeah,
I'm like,
Sunday
it's
nights.
after dinner. What
know.
time is it?
Exactly.
Download the Ben Ferguson Show podcast.
Yep.
Follow him social media at Ben Ferguson Show on X. Also, The Verdict with Ted Cruz. Sir, it is so great
Hey, thanks
meeting
for having
you.
me on. I love getting to talk here with friends. It's like a reunion.
It really is. We were talking about the talk radio fraternity sorority, and
getting
like
smaller,
all
bro.
of us. It is.
It's like
and for
we're
that
dinosaurs.
reason, for that reason, we're like in the bunker, man. We're like, oh God, we're the last
You're
ones
still
left.
employed. Good, me too.
Yes, exactly.
4 years from now, we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, 4 years from now, hopefully, we're talking about a successful first term for President Trump. Dan O'Donnell live from the convention. We'll be right back.
stretch.
You are listening to the Dan O'Donnell Show live from the Republican National Convention right here in downtown Milwaukee. My thanks again to Ben Ferguson, who hosts the Ben Ferguson Show right here on WISN Sunday nights, I should say, 6 to 9 p.m. I had no idea about his multiple brushes with death, and that's a fantastic perspective that he brings to what President Trump is going through. Just the mental change, the spiritual change, the change in your very soul when you are confronted with your own mortality, when you come within literally 2 millimeters, maybe 3-4 millimeters. I still maintain it's about 2 from certain death. Your perspective almost has to change when you reflect on. And not only is it, Ben and his friend were attacked in a gang initiation in Memphis, and they were shot at, but when you have that happen to you and then it be the biggest story in the world, the trauma that you experienced replayed every single hour on every single news channel, and then thinking, hey, my kids, my grandkids have to see this, it makes you think more about it. And Trump is someone who has always been, let's face it, very self-focused, right? He's been very focused on his own real estate developments, his own television career, his own brand, his own presidential ambitions, his own policy, his own legacy as president and commander-in-chief. And I think almost invariably, when you go through that trauma and have to constantly relive that trauma every single minute, and then share that trauma with the entire world, not just your family and your friends and your immediate social circle. What happens when your circle, when your sphere of influence, as it were, is literally the entire world? And your pain is sort of broadcast for the entire world to see, your vulnerability, your mortality. That's got to change you. We've got the Unhinged Liberal of the Day coming up, and it's along those lines as President Biden battles COVID. Who says that it's the exact same as Trump very nearly being taken out by a sniper's bullet? Find out in about 10 minutes when we name the Unhinged Liberal of the Day. What's that, Producer Dave? I gave out the word, didn't I? Sizzling Summer Cash Contest. I swear I gave out the word. Producer Dave. The word is bills. Can somebody back me up? Somebody back me up on this. Okay. No more interruption. Yeah. Producer Dave says, speaking of trauma, he's still got PTSD from all of the angry calls and texts that he got yesterday. Yes, I may or may not have forgotten to give out the 10 o'clock word. That's a failure of producing. Everybody knows I'm a wild card as a host. I need a producer to rein me in, Dave. So I do appreciate that. I do appreciate you looking out. Yes, the word is bills, because we're talking about deep stuff and self-reflection. We're going to reward you. We're going to soothe your soul, improve your psyche with $1,000 in the Sizzlin' Summer Cash Contest. The word is bills. Speaking of President Biden, he has COVID. The Democrats are openly now saying that they need him gone. Look, folks, Saturday's meeting, and this would have been the biggest story in the world had the assassination attempt not happened. There was a big conference call, and Biden apparently was defensive, angry, rambling, incoherent. In other words, pretty much standard issue Joe Biden these days. But in one particularly memorable exchange, Jason Crow, who's a more moderate Democrat and wants him to get out, he's a Gold Star, Medal of Honor winner, Gold Star, whatever it is. Biden basically attacked him for his status. Oh, well, what did you do with that? I got NATO back together, and it was just a very bizarre thing. And then Chuck Schumer apparently took him aside and said, look, Mr. President, there's just no way you can win. There's nothing we can do for you. You're going to take the Senate and House down with you. The Republicans are going to dramatically improve their majority in the House. We're going to lose the Senate. Trump is going to get everything, and you just need to resign. Because he didn't do that, now those conversations are being leaked by Democrats to try to send the signal to other Democrats who have so far been hesitant to openly call for Biden's resignation that it's okay, it's time to go. In what is now, it seems, a daily occurrence, Biden just utterly humiliating himself on the national stage. He did an interview with a black news network and couldn't name his own defense secretary, referring to him as, you know, the black guy.
So we're playing that.
Okay, everybody's focusing on, you know, the black man, that he clearly doesn't seem to know his Secretary of Defense anymore. Who exactly was criticizing him for selecting Lloyd Austin? Lloyd Austin was criticized for, you know, not telling the president or the country that we didn't have a defense secretary when Iran-backed rebels were bombing ships with impunity. And it took a while to realize that he was in intensive care. Biden didn't even know. Well, Biden doesn't know anything, but the ruling cabal of 20 and 30-something they-thems that actually run the White House had no idea America didn't have a defense secretary. We were critical of Ketanji Brown Jackson, not because she's black, but because she hilariously said during her confirmation hearings, I'm not a scientist. I don't know what a woman is. Well, for the purposes of legal analysis and, you know, the actual duty of being a judge, the actual work of being a judge, you sort of have to know the legal definition of woman. You sort of have to know the basic concept of woman. Nobody was criticizing them because they were black. This is just something that Biden kind of made up. But you contrast the things that Biden says with what we expect Trump to say tonight, and it's understandable, especially in the wake of how sympathetic Trump now is and how much stronger he is politically, how much the American people have rallied to him in the days since that assassination attempt. You can understand why Democrats are in absolute panic right now. You're listening to the Dan O'Donnell Show live from the Republican National Convention. We will be back with the unhinged liberal of the day. Here at the Republican National Convention, it is the Dan O'Donnell Show. In my haste to get back on the air, folks, I apologize. I grabbed the wrong headset. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am a broadcast professional. Yes, I have been doing this for quite some time. And yes, I occasionally will talk into a microphone that's not on. I'm just as God made me. Time now here on the Dan O'Donnell Show to name the unhinged liberal of the day.
And she ran. How crazy is this? When the president is this close to being assassinated, and you don't sit there and say, I'll answer whatever question you have, because that's my job. I don't even know what to do with this situation.
You almost got to feel sorry for American libs right now. They're in a bad way. They don't know how they should feel about Trump very nearly getting killed. They know they can't say, we wish the shooter didn't miss. They know they can't say that. They might secretly be thinking it, but they won't say it. Their president looks like he's going to lose in a Reagan-esque landslide, and they're panicking about a new polling model that suggests that Trump's going to win 330 electoral votes. They want Biden to get out, but they don't know if realistically anybody could fill his spot. They don't know what to do. Now Biden has COVID, and I think their brains are well and truly broken. On MSNBC last night, Joy Reid said Biden recovering from COVID is the exact same as Donald Trump very nearly being shot and killed. It should, says Jen Psaki. Folks, that's not sane thinking. That, by the way, is the exact sort of soundbite that's the reason. Right there, we developed this daily segment, the unhinged liberal of the day. Today, and really every day it could be, but today, your unhinged liberal of the day is Joy Reid. We will be back in just a couple of minutes with more live from the Republican National Convention here in downtown Milwaukee on the Dan O'Donnell Show. How's everybody doing that's watching us on the stream? Again, I'm sorry. I feel like I need to explain why you can't hear the sound bites. Our camera normally plugs in its audio input feed. It normally plugs into when I'm at the home studio at the iHeart Media facility in Greenfield. I normally just plug into a headphone jack. So what you're hearing is everything that's going out over the air. So you can hear commercials, you can hear audio sound bites, you can hear bumper music, the theme song. Here, we can't do that because it's a different type of input jack, and it's an input and output. So it's this headset that I'm wearing. Look at, so we have these headsets, so it simultaneously feeds in to my headphones and out through the mic. If we were just to plug in something that feeds in, all you would hear is a giant buzzing sound. So we got to make do. It's not ideal. This is why we We have been doing a lot of guests. Yes, I know. Daniel, listening and watching on Facebook, I know it is a pain. Have no fear. We're going to be back in the studio tomorrow. I'm going to be broadcasting live from our home base. Incidentally, so too will Clay and Buck. Clay and Buck are going to be live in the WISN studio literally right after we're done. So it's going to be, I know JP says I need a splitter. I know. I just, unfortunately, Radio Shack went out of business. It was a real easy place to find one. And we have got I got to tell you, folks, the engineering team that we have got here at the iHeartRadio studios in the media center is just outstanding. They call them the Tiger team, and it's like top engineers from the entire company. They are just doing an incredible job. And unfortunately, they're set up for radio, right? And what we do on video is, let's see. I am switching between Facebook and my radio. Yeah, KM, I miss being live. KM is a loyal YouTube viewer. We do appreciate you watching. You have to run about a minute behind. I know, that's the iHeartRadio stream. It's, if you'll notice. Now, we're normally on between a 7 and 10 second delay. So what I say will be live to you folks watching right now. It is synced up precisely because we're going through the over-the-air feed. Oh, Mike, thank you. I really do appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much. It has been so fun. I'll tell you, I got dropped off yesterday. Well, I'll give you a little behind the scenes. So my wife, God bless her, my wife Megan has been literally my chauffeur. She's been dropping me off at about, I would say, 13th and Wisconsin. No, not 13th, because we're going down about 10th and Wisconsin, I would say. And I walk into the media entrance, the delegate entrance. You got to get screened about 3 different times. You go through the metal detector, and then you're in. And I was dropped off yesterday. We get about halfway downtown, and I realize I don't have my press pass, right? And yes, there's like 20 different press passes. You need a pass to get into everything. You need a separate pass to get through security. You need another one to get into the Fiserv Forum. You get another one to get into the UWM Panther Arena. You need another one to get to the floor of the convention. It is. So I forgot. We had to go all the way back, right? We had to go all the way back. I got into the UWM Panther Arena and everything set up with probably 6 minutes to spare. They were playing the top of the hour news. I finally sat down. I'm like, okay, now I can collect my thoughts and focus on what I'm going to say. But yesterday, so I get in. I woke up probably at about I'd say 6 a.m. I've been pretty much getting up, and I got down here at a little bit before 9, and didn't leave until roughly 1 a.m. I was at the after party. Turning Point USA did an incredible after party at one of the Deer District facilities here, and I was very fortunate enough. I got a VIP pass to that and was hanging out. I shook hands with Vivek Ramaswamy, who spoke there. Let's see, who else? The swimmer, Riley Gaines. Very, very nice young lady. Got to talk to her for quite some time. Benny Johnson, who's here actually broadcasting right over there. I mean, it's been quite the week. I don't think I've been home before about 12:30 a.m. at any night. And guys, I got to tell you, I cannot even believe how close I was watching the J.D. Vance speech. I posted some of the pictures last night. It was the only person standing between Vance and me on that stage was a Secret Service agent. That was it. And interestingly enough, this is a behind-the-scenes thing you're never going to hear. Interestingly enough, the Secret Service agent was a woman who was like half my size. I'm like, shouldn't we have a bigger dude protecting the future vice president? Yes, Joan, my heart did sink. I was like, oh, crap. I briefly toyed with the idea of just giving up and saying, I got to do the show from the home studio. And then I thought, if I'm late, It'll be hilarious. I'll just explain. It would be entertaining. Start the show on the cell phone and just go and set everything up and describe what I'm doing. So, in any event, I got to start. Let's see. How much time do I have? My life is governed by the second. I have exactly 31 seconds. Thank you, Dave. I have 31 seconds before I'm back on the air. So I am going to shut up because Dave has to pot me up in just a second, and you'll hear me on the air in just a minute, okay? It's great talking with you guys. Speaking of which, what do you think? Should I do an online stream only, independent of the radio show, where I just kind of talk to you guys? I'd really like that, honestly. All right. I'm shutting up now, I promise.
Not exactly sure why it was a Rorschach test sort of study. What was it? I thought it was jivey. I listened to it but didn't see it. I don't know if that has any effect on it. Sometimes it does. Oh, often it does. Yeah. He's a heck of a speaker, smart guy, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I called it absorption.
Tonight belongs to Donald J. Trump. The former and hopefully future president of the United States will address the country and the world for the first time since he came just a couple of millimeters from losing his life to an assassin's bullet. There are still far more questions than answers about that. And I feel since I've been down here, we haven't really gotten into the very, very serious security lapses and the unconscionable performance by the United States Secret Service and its upper levels of management. Kimberly Cheadle, the director of the Secret Service, was here, and Senator Marsha Blackburn and a number of other senators actually confronted her on the escalator at the Pfizer Forum to explain what happened. What do you mean you couldn't put a sniper on the roof because it was a sloped roof? Half of these guys are former Navy SEALs and Green Berets. If they could handle some of the deadliest enemy fire in the world, certainly they can handle an incline. What do you mean we couldn't put them on the roof because of a sloped roof? So they were demanding answers. Now, what I will caution, because already I'm seeing the conspiracy theories that there was a second gunman, that this was an inside job. I will caution, it's a variation of Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is always the correct one. And when you're dealing with government, the simplest explanation, I'm telling you folks, is literally always incompetence. So never chalk up to malevolence and evil what can be better explained by incompetence and stupidity. 414-799-1130 is our AdventNews.com talk and text line. Reach me toll free, 1-800-838-9476. Email DOD@iHeartMedia.com, at Dan O'Donnell Show, where we are streaming live via the Dan O'Cam. You can also watch Facebook.com/Dan O'Donnell Show, and on our YouTube channel, just search Dan O'Donnell or Dan O'Donnell Show, and you will find me easily. We may have failed a little bit in giving you the sizzling summer cash contest word in the 10 o'clock hour yesterday, but have no fear, we're making up for it, and I guarantee we are going to get a winner right now. The word is cash. You've got until 55 past the hour to go to our website and enter the keyword cash. If your entry is picked at random, you win $1,000 in cash instantly. So I haven't really been focusing on the investigation into the Trump assassination because there's been so much to cover at the Republican National Convention. And remember, at the very moment we opened up our busy broadcast week, you also had a federal judge throwing out the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case against Trump. And you'll notice there is no talk about attempting to potentially revive that case. This suggests to me that the January 6th case is also very much in jeopardy, and that the Democrats are really in a mess because their entire electoral strategy was to make up for the abject job performance failure of their president, Joe Biden, and his equally obvious mental incapacity and the inability that he has to perform even the most basic functions of the toughest job in America and possibly the world. They were going to say, okay, forget about that, but this guy's a convicted felon. Look how many felonies we can convict Donald Trump of. Well, one of those cases has gone away. One of those cases has completely fallen apart in Georgia because of the utter corruption of District Attorney Fani Willis and her lover/special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, who, for reasons known only to God, actually not, was meeting with the White House multiple times during this prosecution. And you've also got a Manhattan District Attorney bringing a case at the behest of the Biden administration, who sent its number 3 Department of Justice official, Matthew Colangelo, to New York to revive this obvious farce of a case. All of it is the lawfare is just falling down around them. It was great to see Peter Navarro, the former Trump official, who refused to sing. He refused to cooperate with an investigation citing executive presidential immunity in his communications with President Trump, and he actually went to prison for it. He walked out of a prison yesterday morning. He was speaking at the Republican National Convention yesterday evening. J.D. Vance gave an incredible, impassioned speech. Again, I don't know, because I was there. I wasn't in the front row, folks. I was in front of the front row. I was about as close as it gets. So my perspective, basically watching a live stump speech, was very different than what you saw, the much grander stage behind Vance. I was looking at, the entire thing, and frankly, he looked positively small up there behind, in front of the giant stage behind him. But what you saw was him powerful and big on screen. What the world saw was the panning shots of President Trump and the crowd and all of that reacting to it. I didn't see that. I didn't see how it looked on television. And what I'm told was that, well, Vance gave a good speech, but it wasn't a great speech because energetic. He wasn't really, forceful. He wasn't yelling. There were some great speeches where, the speaker, their voice raises along with the moment. It's like there are waves of a speech. There are ebbs and flows of how someone uses their voice. And Vance didn't really have that. But I would argue that he shouldn't have. As the vice president, you never want to overshadow your boss. You never want to overshadow or upstage the president, especially not Donald Trump, okay? So there was also the complementary nature of Vance's position on the ticket. I believe he is there precisely because he's not one of these fire and brimstone preacher-sounding speakers, that he is a calm, relaxed guy, and that provides the contrast to President Trump. But Vance, as a vice president, isn't necessarily about providing the contrast in personality. It's about, first, providing the contrast in age. He's 39 years old. He's one of the youngest vice presidents we've had in decades, certainly the youngest since Richard Nixon, who was also 39 when he was Dwight D. Eisenhower's running mate in 1952. But we have had 2 old codgers going back and forth since 2020, and now there's fresh new blood injected into this campaign. In addition, Vance's entire life story is the culminate, his selection. And I can see now why Trump didn't name Vance until the first day of the convention, because the theme of the convention and the theme of the candidacy and the reason Vance is on the ticket is because his life story, his ability to live the American dream by believing in founding principles, prosperity, free markets, free enterprise, free people, peace, resolution for strength only when necessary, a prosperity agenda, a fundamentally American agenda, America first, doesn't mean jingoistic nationalism. It means what Americans have always believed and the ideas that we've always subscribed to until a globalist agenda. We are just one nation among many, not one nation first among many, leading the world with our fundamental goodness. We just need to take care of the rest of the world because of our economic power and largesse. That's what the fundamental rejection of that mentality looks like. It's embodied in J.D. Vance's life. And he told a little something about his biography. And I want you to listen in particular how he weaves in how his life and that of the community he grew up in was impacted by elite liberal politics. That's J.D. Vance, the vice presidential nominee, last night. That story was the story of how many different towns, not just Middletown, Ohio, but all of the people. Again, the theme of the forgotten Americans openly harmed by Democrat policies and even policies of elite Republicans. The specific reference to the disastrous invasion of Iraq was not an accident. Millions of people, Republicans and Democrats alike, 21 years later, can now say, yes, that was a mistake. Regime change in Iraq without a clear plan of what to do afterwards, with no real connection to 9/11 itself, that was a mistake. No longer are we going to do this. And I think it's because of that that people have turned decidedly against this idea that America is just a blank check to fund any military operation in the world. We understand intrinsically that the evil of Hamas needs to be defeated, but that doesn't mean that America needs to be writing check after check after check. We understand that Putin needs to be reined in and he can't be allowed further territorial expansion in Ukraine, but that doesn't mean that every couple of months we send another $5 billion over there with apparently no strings attached, and again, no plan for bringing the conflict to a halt. This again signals a fundamental diametric shift in policy that is aimed at not necessarily populism, but it's a brand of conservatism that I think we've all sort of understood appeals to everyone, but no one until Donald Trump, and nowhere except here in Milwaukee at this convention were those dots connected and the vision completely crystallized. In that sense, this has been an absolutely flawless convention. Technically speaking, it has been brilliant. The logistics of getting thousands and thousands of people down here to Fiserv Forum, to all sorts of hotels around the area, moving those people around, it's been fantastic. And the theme, the overarching theme, how one day has built into the next, one speech has built into the next, has just been incredible to watch. I am Dan O'Donnell. Coming up next. What I thought was the most emotional speech of the entire convention. I'm man enough to admit that I was crying during it. You won't want to miss this, a moment that will give you chills. Coming up next here on the Dan O'Donnell Show. Conservative thought, not just talk. It is the Dan O'Donnell Show. All week we have been broadcasting live from the Republican National Convention in downtown Milwaukee. I've been talking to people from across the country about just what they think about Milwaukee, about Wisconsin, and the sentiment is universally positive. They love it here. They love the job that the host committee has done in setting this up. They're just having a wonderful time. In fact, I was talking to a delegate from the Houston area, and he said that he was shocked. He was shocked by just how clean and how great Milwaukee is. He says, I haven't even seen a single pothole since we've been here. And I said, my brother in Christ, you have not been here in March. We've got potholes the size of small lakes. You know, like Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, and Wisconsin claims to have more lakes than Minnesota. It's because we count all of the potholes in Milwaukee that form every single spring. Those we consider small lakes. No, it has been so much fun just talking to people, and many, in fact, almost all say this is the first time that we have ever been to Milwaukee, and it is just so fun and special that we can't wait to come back. And I just it fills me with pride as a Wisconsinite, as a Milwaukeean, easily, I think, for me at least, the most emotional, most heartfelt part of this entire convention. We've had a lot of emotional, heartfelt pieces. And this, by the way, also, with such a focus on everyday Americans, it seems like every just goosebumps, hair on the back of your neck standing up moment has come when an everyday American speaks. The woman from New York who lost her son, murdered, a veteran. Her speech was just electric. It was fantastic. The mother who lost her son to fentanyl. So emotional, so raw, so real. For me personally, though, the most emotional moment has clearly been Bill Peckrell, a sergeant, a D-Day veteran, a man who stormed the beaches 80 years ago. He's now 98 years old. He's from New Berlin. And about a decade ago, I actually had the chance to interview Bill for the 70th anniversary of D-Day. We called it D-Day plus 70 years of service. That storming the beaches of Normandy was only the first in a lifetime of opportunities to serve this country. Bill spent years, he would talk to classes about his experience. He just was a pillar of his community here in New Berlin. And admittedly, I lost touch with him. Several years ago, we had, as often will happen when you're dealing with technology, a massive system crash. And I lost a whole lot of work. We were able to rebuild a whole lot of the sound libraries that we had. But I have not been able to find the piece I did on Bill Peckrell. And I'm ashamed to admit I couldn't remember, as the years went by, I couldn't remember his last name, and always wondered. I thought about him every so often. I said, oh boy, I wonder what he's up to. And because we're losing so many World War II veterans, I assume that he had passed on. So you can imagine my surprise when I saw his name on the list of speakers last night at the Republican National Convention. And I knew we have seats way up at the top on Radio Row of the Fiserv Forum. It's like section 213. I believe we have a handful of passes that will allow you to get all the way down to the floor. And I said, you know what? I don't care about any other speech. I need to be on the floor for Bill Peckrell. And I am so glad that I was. Dave, send me that sponsorship liner, please. Just an absolutely incredible speech, touching in every sense of the word. I had tears in my eyes. I had tears actually running down my cheeks, seeing him reflecting on his service to the country, knowing that he's a neighbor. He's a friend. He's an everyday American. He's a Wisconsinite. He is the absolute best among us. Thank you so much for that moment, Sergeant Bill Peckrell. I am Dan O'Donnell, live at the Republican National Convention, presented by AmericanMedicalPlans.com. Save 30 to 60% with better coverage at AmericanMedicalPlans.com. We will continue with much more here at the UWM Panther Arena Media Center when the Dan O'Donnell Show returns. Dave, how much time left in this break? 2:50. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody watching on the stream.
with Blackburn or not.
You're listening to the Dan O'Donnell Show live from the Republican National Convention in downtown Milwaukee. It has been just an absolutely incredible 4 days here at the convention, and we do appreciate our great sponsor, AmericanMedicalPlans.com. Save 30 to 60% with better coverage at AmericanMedicalPlans.com. Donald Trump Jr. also spoke last night and asked the question all of us have been asking: who's really running things?
Well, even if she were genius at the nuts and bolts of protection.
I sure hope not. As everyone knows, Corn Pop was a bad dude. This is why I have speculated that the real governing power in this country is a nameless cabal of 30 and 40-something they-thems who are dragging Biden around. There was video that emerged yesterday, and to say it's disturbing, this, by the way, is why we remember we had the Joe Biden theme. It was the old Jimmy Fallon song, Idiot Boyfriend was the name of it. It was, I know what you want, I know what you need, but I'm going to screw it up because I'm an idiot. It stopped being funny when it became apparent, and I openly on the air toyed with the idea when we were doing Joe Biden updates, saying, look, this really isn't him being an idiot. I mean, he's always been known as something of a buffoon, as a glad-handing, backslapping, thoroughly corrupt, amiable dunce. That was his reputation for 50 years in politics. This isn't Dan O'Donnell, partisan conservative, saying this. This is Joe Biden's reputation. Just go back. The Onion's coverage of Joe Biden, the satirical newspaper and website, go back to when he was vice president. The coverage of him was absolutely hilarious. Of course, he runs for president. He's taking on the great Satan Donald Trump. So immediately the Joe Biden character that the Onion had created went away because, of course, you can't ever make fun of a Democrat. You can't ever make them the butt of the joke. But it was openly known that Biden just was not a very bright guy. Something changed, and something changed very dramatically. I think starting in the 2020 campaign, when it was rather obvious that Biden just couldn't physically or I think mentally muster the rigors of an actual campaign. And then long about 2022, going into early 2023, I think is when you saw the real signs of slippage. Now it's every day. I mean, he refers to the defense secretary. And folks, I'm going to give him a pass on this. I'll forget the name will be on the tip of my tongue. But for him to go, the black guy, it is sort of a callback to his, I think, latent racism. But in any event, you have one of those every day. Yesterday, though, after he was diagnosed with COVID, ABC News, David Muir had the coverage, and they had Biden getting helped into a car. They said, well, he's really struggling with COVID. He's not wearing the mask right now, but he's now put on the mask now that he's in the car. He actually didn't. But what you could see was his aides having to essentially carry him into the car. And it wasn't because of COVID that he was so sick. It was that he's so frail. And everybody has known a loved one or a friend who is just no longer able to do what they used to. And getting into cars becomes a challenge, unfortunately. Now, your elderly friends and loved ones aren't running the free world, so while it's disturbing and it's sad, it's not as terrifying as it is with Biden. This is where we are now, and this is why even Democrats understand that Biden has to get out. Now, the thing I will continue to point out that Biden is obviously in physical and mental decline. No Democrat is saying he should step down from the presidency. They're just saying he shouldn't run. So they have absolutely no concern about the fact that the United States of America is being led by a man who can't even get into a car and can't remember the name of his own defense secretary. They have no problem with that. But if it's going to cost us an election, if it's going to cost us a loss to Donald Trump, and he might take down the Senate and he might take down the House, well, that's something that we care about. That is why he needs to be replaced. J.D. Vance's speech touched on this raw, ruthless lust for power that Democrats have and contrasted it with the vision for America that Republicans, the Trump agenda, the America First agenda, the populist conservative agenda has. This is a 3-minute, nearly 3-minute segment of Vance's speech that I think is incredibly important to highlight. That's it. That's the Make America Great Again agenda. Whether you're black, brown, Hispanic, white, rural, urban, suburban, gay, lesbian, trans, man, woman, rich, poor, whatever walk of life, this is what we all want. This is what we have always known we have always wanted. And this is what the elites have deprived us of. Instead of providing jobs for Americans, they import millions of foreign competitors. And Vance, at one point during his speech, said, yes, America is a land of opportunity and a land of immigration, but we have the right as a nation, as a people, to have immigration on our terms, which we always did up until about 25 years ago when the floodgates really opened in earnest, and especially in the last 3 years when it became an obvious political strategy to flood this country with new Americans. We don't even call them illegal immigrants anymore. We don't even call them immigrants. We call them migrants or new arrivals. You talk about a remarkable feat of linguistic gymnastics. They're new arrivals, new neighbors, and we want to put them on a pathway to voting or citizenship. Now, what of course comes with citizenship? Oh, it just happens to be voting. So as everyday Americans, it is just so obvious. And they say, well, it's a racist replacement theory. No, you've been openly bragging about it for years. As Americans get more upwardly mobile with a prosperity agenda, they have a tendency to abandon the nanny state politics of the neo-socialist Democrat left, and they tend to gravitate towards this self-determination message of the Republican Party. Yes, we are here to give you a hand up, not a hand out. America has always been a nation that takes care of its people, but it doesn't baby them. It doesn't provide for their every need. It gives them assistance when they need it, but we understand that, what was it that Reagan famously said? The single greatest government program is a job, or the single greatest welfare benefit is a job. Nothing is truer, and Americans want to work. They want higher wages because they don't want to compete with people who have no right to be here. Moreover, they want things that they can afford. We never thought, in many of our lifetimes, we never had a situation in which you literally had to, and a lot of people, and I fully admit, I am not struggling financially. I will still go out to eat no matter what it costs. Even I have my limits as I see how much Chipotle now charges for a burrito. But my point is that people who really are living paycheck to paycheck, who are struggling, the hardworking Americans, they see all this and they say, look, 4 years ago, I could afford groceries. 4 years ago, I could actually take my kids to McDonald's for a Happy Meal, and it wasn't something that I would have to consider, hey, where's the money going to be coming from? $1,000 a month plus. I think it's close to $1,100 a year, or excuse me, a month. More than $12,000 a year. That's what Bidenflation is costing. And the message of this convention, the overarching theme of this convention, is that we can't afford 4 more years, to be sure. And that's, the political messaging, and it's kind of a rote slogan. But at a deeper level, what is being communicated is, things are bad, I know things are bad, things can be better, I know things can be better, and Donald Trump is the man who can make them better. You just have to have the courage that he showed to get up and fight and go with your gut, go with your heart, regardless of the social ostracism you might face from your Democrat friends who couldn't imagine voting for that awful criminal rapist insurrectionist. Know that nothing that's said about the man is true. Go with your heart, go with what you believe and know to be true. Go with Trump, go with Republicans, go with a pro-America agenda. Live from the Republican National Convention in downtown Milwaukee, it is the Dan O'Donnell Show, presented by AmericanMedicalPlans.com. Save 30 to 60% with better coverage at AmericanMedicalPlans.com. We do have some coverage of breaking news reported by Politico. Its founders Jim Vandehey and Mike Allen reporting that several top Democrats privately tell us the rising pressure of party congressional leaders and close friends will persuade President Biden to decide to drop out of the presidential race as soon as this weekend. The 81-year-old president, now self-isolating with COVID, remains publicly dug in, but privately, he's resigned to mounting pressure, bad polls, and untenable scrutiny, making it impossible to continue his campaign, the Democrats tell us. The private message distilled in its bluntest form. The top leaders of his party, his friends and key donors, believe he can't win, can't change public perceptions of his age and acuity, and can't deliver congressional majorities. The president is being told that if he stays in, former President Trump could win in a landslide and wipe away Biden's legacy and Democrats' hopes in November. The pressure to step aside as a candidate has been rising to intolerable levels, especially over the past few days. Democrats fully expect polls after the Republican National Convention to show a possible blowout that could bring down Democrats in Congress, too. His choice is to be one of history's heroes or to be sure of the fact that there will never be a Biden presidential library, one of the president's close friends told us. I pray that he does the right thing. He's headed that way. Now, you have to ask yourself, why exactly is this being leaked out right now? Why specifically is the pull quote about the Biden presidential library? Because what they're trying to do is leverage his legacy. Say, Joe, we will ensure that you don't get a single dime for your presidential library. We will ensure that we message the fact that you are one of the worst presidents in history, or you can go out as a hero. For the good of the country, you can save us from the intolerable, unspeakable evil that is Donald Trump. This is all coming out now because this is the final, last, best push to get Biden out. Now, there's simultaneously a movement going on behind the scenes to try to get him nominated as early as the end of July to formally put a stop to all of this pressure. Suffice it to say that the next couple of days are going to be just as action-packed as the last couple of days live here at the Republican National Convention. This will about do it for our live broadcasts here on this, the final day of the convention, but have no fear, folks. I am going to be here all day and all night. I will be back on the convention floor for President Trump's acceptance speech tonight. I will be providing coverage. I will almost certainly do a live stream. I haven't decided yet. It'll probably be on X sometime later in the day. I will be walking around. I'll be trying to get as many interviews and get some pictures and videos for you. So please do follow me on social media. It has been just an incredible time broadcasting live here from the Media Center. I do want to thank especially Chris Berry and Mike Ross from our national iHeartMedia team for just doing an incredible job setting things up, and all of the engineers, Richard and his team, for making us sound great as always. Producer Dave back at the iHeartMedia studios. Thank you all so much. Live from the Republican National Convention, this has been the Dan O'Donnell Show.